All right, let's go over the review stuff. So in this one, we're solving a multi-step equation. We are solving for x. Now my recommendation is to always get rid of the x that has the lowest number. So we're gonna get rid of the 2x here. So if we subtract 2x, this is now gone. There are no more x's on this side, but whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other. We're gonna subtract 2x over here. So now you're left with 3x plus 3 equals positive 15, which is just 15. Now we have to leave this x by itself. First, we're gonna get rid of this over here, the plus 3, okay, which is furthest away from the x, but it's still doing something to the x. This 3 is multiplying, this 3 is adding. So we're gonna subtract it. So minus 3, gone, minus 3. Then we're left with 3x by itself equals 12. Divide by 3, divide by 3, x equals 4. Why am I dividing? Because it's the opposite of multiplying by 3. When you do the opposite, it gets rid of the number. When I did the opposite of plus 3, got rid of this. The opposite of a positive 2x is a minus 2x. So once you do the opposite, it will get rid of it. I didn't want to get rid of the x here, so I just got rid of the 3. The 3 is multiplying with the x, so I divided. And then my solution is 4. So now let's work on this part here. This is slope intercept form. Why is it called slope intercept? Because that's the slope and that's the intercept. The intercept is a number by itself and the slope is here. If this was missing, okay, right now, this is telling me we start on the 2. So that's 1, 2. So that's our first dot. If this was missing, I would just start on 0. But it's telling me you have to start on 2. So this is your start. This is your slope, 2 over 5. So 2 over 5. The 2 controls up. Okay, so the numerator controls up or down. If it's positive, you'll go up. If it's negative, you'll go down. The bottom number always tells you how much to go to the right. So from here, you will go up 2 and over 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And up there, I have 2 dots. That is enough to graph a straight line. Okay? And that is it. That's slope-intercept form. The intercept tells you where to start, and the slope tells you how to get to the next dot. So it's 2 up, 1, 2, and over 5. All right, now we're here. How do you find the slope if they don't give it to you? If you have 2 points, you could count it. You could count to it, going up 2 and over 5, okay? But if they give you 2 points, there's another way. You could do the change in y. Remember that these are x's, and the second ones are y's. So xy, xy, okay? So now the change in y, so how does a 1 turn into a 5? By using adding and subtracting only. Well, 1 to get to a 5, you added 4. So that's a positive 4 on the top for the change in y. What about the change in x? How does a 3 get to a negative 2? Does it go up or down? It goes down, so that's going to be a negative. So it goes down how many? It goes down 5 steps. So this is negative 5. There's your slope, negative 4 over 5. Now let's work on Pythagorean's theorem. Remember, it is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now, c is the only important one. C has to go here. The other 2 are interchangeable. So C is always the hypotenuse, the longest side of the right triangle. Or you can tell that this is pointing at it. Hey, it's over there. Okay, so the longest side is x. So this is going to be x in this situation. The other 2, I don't care which one's a, which one's b, it doesn't matter. So 3 squared plus 4 squared. So 3 squared means 3 times itself, which means 9. 4 times itself is 16, and that still equals x squared. Then we're going to add these. That makes 25 equals x squared. What's the opposite of squared? Square root. Square root. You're left with 5 equals x. And that's your answer. That's how you solve these equations if x is in the hypotenuse. What if x is not in the hypotenuse? I have an example of that. These are the only 2 scenarios for the Pythagorean's theorem. And you can only use it on right triangles. That's very important. So this right triangle, C is actually 7 in this situation. So it's a squared plus b b squared equals c squared, because 7 is the only one that has to go here. When x is a or b, I just make it a every time. I just like it over here at the far end. So you can't square this, so it comes down. This becomes a 25, and this becomes a 49. So you subtract 25 here, subtract 25 here, x squared equals 24. How do you get rid of the squared? You square root, that was a horrible square root. X equals the square root of 24. I could simplify this, but for right now, we're just gonna leave it like that, and that is your final answer. If it's an irrational number at the end, you just leave it in the square root. You could do the tree to simplify it, but right now, we're just gonna leave it like that. All right, so you should know that every single triangle adds up to 180 degrees. So 70 plus 40, so right now I have 70 and I have a 40 and I have a mystery number, but I know that when you add them all up, they have to equal 180. So I'm looking for that mystery number. 70 plus 40 plus blank equals 180. Let's put these together, maybe that'll make it easy. 110 plus something equals 180. Well, I know it's 70. But if you don't know and you still have to work it out just a little bit more, you subtract 110 from both sides. So now you're left with x equals 180 minus 110. So now x equals 70. Okay, now we're going over here. We're gonna be working with this. Okay, so normally you would solve this part, right? That's 104, so this here, this is 105, so this has to be 75, and then you could solve these two. But in this case, you have to use that shortcut because you have to. These two add up to this one. So they're equal to each other when you add up these two. So 2x plus 3x equals 105. So that means, let me scroll a little bit. So that means that if you combine these times, you're gonna get 5x 105 divided by 5 divided by 5, x equals 21. Scroll a little bit more, there it is. All right, now let's talk about this equation. N minus 2 equals 180. N minus 2 times 180. That's how you figure out how many degrees are in any shape. So if I have a heptagon has 7 sides. So this is gonna be 7 minus 2 times 180. 7 minus 2 is 5. 5 times 180 is going to be 900. So I know every heptagon has to have 900 degrees inside. N stands for number of sides. Now the last thing we're gonna do is flipping a coin 3 times. So in the first flip, there's 2 options. There is heads and there are tails. Then if I flip it again, okay, let's just go in this direction. If I flip heads first and I flip it again, I have 2 options that could happen. I have heads and tails, right? That could be, it could be heads or heads, tails, exactly, right? So this also has 2 options. If I flip tails first, the next flip could be heads or tails. So when you flip once, you have a 50-50 shot. But when you flip it twice, now it's a 25% shot, or a 1 in 4 that it's gonna happen the way that you're thinking. Now if I flip 3 times, so I flip one more time. So let's say I did heads and heads. The third one has an option of heads or tails. If I did heads and tails, my third option also has heads and tails. Then if I did tails and heads, I have heads and tails as my third option. And if I did tails and tails, this would be heads and tails in my last option. So these are all the possible scenarios. Heads, 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 tails, heads, tails, heads, heads, tails, tails, all these options. Okay, so now there are how many endings? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So now the options of all of these is 1 out of 8 in every single scenario. Every scenario is 1 out of 8. And that's all of it. Good luck on your test, guys.